Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. Today, we're shifting gears a little bit. We're heading over to Sweden.
Ooh, Sweden.
Sweden, yeah.
Nice.
To explore this kind of radical new approach to criminal justice, specifically for young offenders.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting is the source itself. We're not, looking at some dry government report or, a stuffy academic research paper.
Right.
Our deep dive this week is actually based on this website called stokit.nu.
What?
Yeah, it's actually a really cool platform. It's a collaborative website
Right.
where, get this, a human, his name is Mike, teams up with his AI partner, to tackle all sorts of really complex social issues. And one of the things they've been diving into is this whole alternative justice system for young offenders.
Huh. AI-driven content analyzing social issues.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, it's definitely a different perspective.
So what's this alternative justice system they came up with?
Well, it all kind of starts with this really simple but powerful Swedish saying,
Okay.
Man blir som man umgås.
Man blir som man umgås.
You got it. Which basically means you become like those you hang out with.
Makes sense.
So Mike and his friend Elvira, who he was working on this with, they were kind of, brainstorming about how this saying really applies to the whole traditional prison environment.
I mean, I guess you're putting a bunch of, young people who have committed crimes all together. And yeah, that could actually reinforce that behavior.
Right.
Not really discourage it.
Exactly. That's the whole point they're making. They're arguing that, the current system, the way we do things now, it often misses the mark.
Mm-hmm.
It fails to address the root causes of why these young people are getting into trouble in the first place.
Yeah.
And in some cases, they're arguing that it can actually make things even worse.
So what are they suggesting? What's the alternative?
Okay, so are you ready for this?
Yeah, lay it on me.
They're proposing that we send these young offenders, instead of to prison, to farms.
Wait. To farms?
To farms or like struggling state-run businesses. Yeah. The whole idea is to give them this structured environment
Okay.
where they're surrounded by, positive role models, where they have the chance to learn, real-world skills, like valuable skills.
Right.
And, to actually like contribute to society in a meaningful way.
So it's like a complete 180 from the whole traditional prison idea.
Yeah, it's a totally different approach, but it's important to, make it clear here, this isn't for every young offender.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha. So who we're talking about here?
This is specifically for young people who have committed, nonviolent offenses.
Okay.
So they're excluding, people who have been convicted of, really serious crimes like murder,
Right.
sexual assault, crimes against children.
Of course, yeah.
Things like that. We're talking about, less serious offenses. And the whole emphasis here is on rehabilitation. It's not punishment.
Okay. So how does this actually work? I mean, do they just drop these kids off at a random farm and say, good luck, figure it out?
No. It's not like that.
Okay.
Mike and his AI partner have actually developed this whole really detailed plan with like several key features.
Okay, I'm interested. Let's break it down. What's involved?
All right, so placement on these farms or in these businesses, that's just the starting point.
Okay, so what else is there?
One of the big things they emphasize is this idea of isolation.
Isolation.
Yeah, like isolating these young people from their previous criminal networks.
So you break those social ties that can lead them back into trouble.
Exactly. Like remove the bad influences.
Okay, it makes sense.
And replace them with, positive ones.
So what about, like, supervision? Who's making sure that these kids are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Okay, so they've got this system of mandatory mentorship.
Mentorship?
Yeah, so each participant in this program, they'd be assigned a mentor.
Okay.
Someone who's trained, to provide guidance, support, and, really help them address any underlying issues that might have, contributed to their criminal behavior.
So it's not just about teaching them, like, how to milk a cow or fix a tractor. It's about, like, addressing the whole person.
Exactly. Their needs, their challenges.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, but are they just, like, wandering around freely? I mean, what about public safety?
Yeah, that's a good point. And they've addressed that. So to ensure accountability and to, address those potential public safety concerns, they've built in electronic monitoring.
So ankle bracelets.
Yep.
Gotcha. So it gives, some level of oversight and reassurance for the community.
Exactly. And it also helps the participants, kind of stay on track. Now, we also have to talk about, the elephant in the room, like the financial side of things.
Right, because all of this can't be cheap.
No, it's not, but it's a key element of their proposal. So participants in this program, they'd be required to work.
Okay.
And to, repay their debt to society through that work.
So they're learning these new skills, they're contributing to the economy, and they're also, like, working off any fines or restitution they might owe.
You got it.
Wow, so it's like a triple win.
Exactly. And it's all about setting them up for success when they finish the program, not, burdening them with all this debt.
Right, which could just lead them right back into trouble.
Exactly.
This is really interesting.
It is, right. It's definitely a different way of thinking about things. They've really thought this through, haven't they? Trying to create a system that actually addresses, like, multiple needs at once.
Yeah, definitely.
But, let's be real, right? There are going to be some downsides, or at least challenges with this kind of approach.
Oh, for sure. No system is going to be perfect. And this one is no exception. Like, one of the biggest things I see right away is that initial cost of actually setting all this up.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about creating this whole alternative system, training mentors. You've got to manage all these placements. And then, making sure that you've got a really reliable electronic monitoring system. That can't be cheap.
No, it's definitely not. And the website actually, they acknowledge this.
Okay.
They're very upfront about the fact that the upfront investment, it's going to be significant.
Okay.
But they do project, long-term savings.
Right. So that's, one hurdle, the financial side of things. But then what about public perception?
Yeah.
I can already imagine, like, people pushing back, feeling like this is just too lenient on these young offenders.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be a huge hurdle to overcome. And they talk about this on the website, too.
Okay.
They really emphasize how important public education is going to be.
Right.
And transparency. People need to understand, like, how this program actually works.
Right.
Why it's being proposed, and how it actually aims to create a safer society for everyone in the long run.
So it's kind of like a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Like moving away from purely punishing people.
Right.
And actually, like, focusing on rehabilitation and second chances.
Exactly. And it's not just about, winning over the public. There's also the challenge of making sure that this program is actually implemented and managed properly.
Yeah, how so?
Well, for one thing, you need to have a really, really strong risk assessment process.
Oh, okay.
To determine which individuals are actually suitable for this type of program.
So you're saying this is not like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly.
Some young offenders might need a different approach.
For sure. And even with really careful screening, there's always the chance that some people, they might not respond well to this kind of model.
Right.
Or, maybe they do reoffend.
Yeah, of course.
So you need to have really clear protocols in place to deal with those situations.
Absolutely. It definitely sounds like there are a lot of potential pitfalls here.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, dwell on the negatives.
Sure.
What about the positives? What are the potential benefits that make this idea so compelling in the first place?
Well, they really highlight a bunch of benefits on the website. One of the biggest ones is the potential for saving a lot of money.
Oh, okay. Compared to, traditional prisons, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
So let's talk numbers. What kind of savings are we actually talking about here?
So they estimate that, on average, a traditional prison place in Sweden costs over 1 million kroners per year per person.
Wow. 1 million kroners. Okay.
Yeah. And their projections for this alternative system, they're saying it would be more like 250,000 kroners per year per person.
So you're talking about saving over 750,000 kroners per person every year.
Exactly. That's a massive difference. And that money, it could be redirected to other, important social programs.
Of course.
Or community initiatives.
Makes sense. But, obviously the financial aspect is just one piece of this.
Right.
I'd say maybe even more importantly is the impact on recidivism rates.
Right. So for people who aren't familiar, recidivism, it's basically the likelihood of someone committing another crime after they've served their sentence.
Exactly. And we were talking earlier about how the current system, with all its emphasis on punishment and confinement,
right,
it often doesn't really work. It doesn't break that cycle of criminal behavior.
Totally. And in fact, sometimes it actually makes it worse.
Right. But this model, it aims to actually reduce those recidivism rates
Yeah.
by addressing those root causes of crime, by teaching these valuable skills, and by giving these young people a more supportive environment so they can reintegrate into society.
Exactly. So you have fewer people going back to prison, which means safer communities for everybody.
That's huge. That's a really powerful argument.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's also the potential economic benefit.
Oh, right, because you're taking these young people who might otherwise, be a drain on resources.
Right.
And you're actually giving them the skills they need to contribute to the economy.
Exactly. It's about, empowering them to find meaningful work and, become productive members of society.
So it's a win-win, right?
At least in theory. Yeah.
In theory, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about, the benefits. We've talked about some of the challenges. But even if this program, was implemented perfectly, it's not going to address every aspect of youth crime.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
This is just one piece of a much bigger, more complex puzzle.
Mm.
I mean, you've got poverty, lack of education, mental health issues, exposure to violence.
So many factors.
Yeah, so many factors that contribute to this problem.
So this program, it shouldn't be seen as like a cure-all.
Right.
It's more like a targeted intervention for a specific group of young offenders.
Exactly. And even within that group, you're going to have a lot of individual needs that have to be met.
Right, which is why it's so important to have that really careful screening process we talked about, and that, individualized support and a flexible approach that can adapt to all these different situations.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think,
It does.
about like the whole purpose of our justice systems. Like, what are we actually trying to do? Are we trying to punish people, rehabilitate them, deter crime?
Right.
Or is it some combination of all those things?
I mean, that's a huge question.
It is.
And honestly, I don't think there's one right answer.
Yeah, I think it really depends.
Yeah, every society kind of has to grapple with that, right? And decide for themselves.
And different cultures are going to have different perspectives, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what's so interesting about this proposal, this Swedish proposal, is that it really leans heavily towards rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to young offenders.
Yeah.
Young people who haven't committed those super serious violent crimes.
And it's not about, just being soft on crime either.
Right.
Like, it's not just letting people off the hook.
No, not at all.
This program, at least the way they've laid it out, it's got some pretty strong accountability built in.
It does.
I mean, you've got the mentorship, the electronic monitoring, the requirement to work, and actually repay your debt to society.
Right. It's trying to strike that balance between giving young people a genuine second chance while also, making sure that the public is safe.
Yeah.
And that there's actual accountability.
It's acknowledging that, just locking someone up doesn't actually solve the problem.
Right.
And like we were saying before, it can actually make things worse in some cases.
Absolutely.
It's like, trying to teach someone to swim by just throwing them in the deep end of the pool and being like, okay, figure it out.
Yeah. Good luck.
Without any lessons or anything. Sometimes you need a little more structure.
For sure.
You need some support to actually get people where they need to be.
I love that analogy. And I think it's important to remember, too, that this is all still theoretical.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This proposal, it's still in its early stages.
Right.
There's still a lot of work to do to figure out the details, address those challenges we talked about, and really see if this could actually work in the real world.
One of the things that really struck me about this whole depth dive is how interconnected all these social issues are.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about criminal justice, yes, but we're also talking about education, employment, poverty, community support. It's all tied together.
You're exactly right. This proposal, it can't exist in isolation.
No.
For it to really work, it needs a whole network.
Yeah.
A whole system of support.
Excellent.
You need those well-trained mentors we were talking about. Effective job training programs. A strong social safety net. And a community that actually believes in second chances and is willing to embrace that.
It's not just about changing the laws or even the justice system, right?
Right.
It's about changing how we as a society view crime and address those root causes, especially when it comes to young people.
Exactly. And that means shifting our perspective.
Yeah.
Being willing to invest in prevention.
Yeah.
And believing that change is possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in that fear, right?
Yeah.
That anger that crime often evokes.
Absolutely.
But this proposal, it challenges us to think a little bit differently.
Yeah, to look past that initial reaction and really think about the long-term consequences of the choices we make as a society.
It reminds us that justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about restoring things,
Right.
about rehabilitation, and ultimately about creating a society where everyone, every single person has a chance to thrive. So, for all of you listening, we've really tried to unpack this, pretty fascinating proposal for this alternative justice system in Sweden.
Yeah.
We've looked at the potential benefits, the challenges, and all those, complicated social issues that are tied into this.
For sure.
And like we always say, we're not here to give you all the answers.
Right.
But hopefully we've given you some things to think about.
Definitely. And if you're interested in learning more, check out the website, stokic.nu.
Yeah, go check it out.
Mike and his AI partner, they have a ton of information on there.
They really do.
Like all the financial breakdowns, projections, and even, responses to some common criticisms of this approach.
Yeah, they've thought of pretty much everything.
So dive deep, do your own research,
Yeah.
and come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this whole idea? Would this system work in your community?
Right. What are your thoughts, your concerns? Share them with us.
Thanks for joining us on another deep dive.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.